please. I'm going to approach today a bit softer than usual and probably a bit softer than yesterday. Or as my lady would say, softlier.
Yeah, I have my own vocabulary.
She has her own vocabulary. Softlier. Okay. We're gonna go after
Clear.
or quicklier. Yeah. We're not gonna go quicklier, we're gonna go softlier today. Yeah. And I want to start off with a bit of an example. Can you see this in my hands here? You all see that?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. What is that?
Mm.
What is it?
A seed.
Is it a seed?
A
That's good
peanut?
news.
Tony
Huh?
Pepper.
A peanut? Do you want to see again? I'll show another one. I have a handful of them here.
A bean.
Yeah, right. It's a bean. Okay, let's see. Let's have everyone mute themselves unless you're ready to speak, only because I'm getting some feedback here. Wonderful, thank you. Yeah. The reason why I brought these today is because I want to start off with a bit of an analogy. I feel like it has been and is my job to convince a handful of seeds that they're not rocks, that they're actually seeds. Okay? Now, if you catch the analogy, you all are the seeds, and I'm trying to convince you that you're not stones, you're not pebbles, you're not rocks. See, I'm holding here, but it's in the wrong area. Handful of these, okay? Now, the reason I say that is because in looking at a seed, you would never know what's really inside of it, right? You would never guess. I used this analogy 2 weeks ago. I said, if you came from a planet that had no seeds and trees and things like that, then and someone showed you a seed and said, look, this is also that, you wouldn't have the correlation, would you? Ah, great. Welcome, Jan. Welcome, Sachin. Welcome. Yeah. So do you understand where I'm going with this? Is that what do you suppose this work is really about? Because I think I have a different perception than most of you might. Do you think it's about struggle? Because I don't. Do you think it's about learning everything you possibly can from a occult and esoteric standpoint? Because I don't. Do you think it's a journey? Well, maybe. Depends on what you mean by a journey. But I don't. I would say the biggest difference between yourselves and where I'm at in this work is only a matter of perception. In other words, not just a perception, someone's perception, but the ability to perceive. It's just a difference in perception. You see, if you think about it from the standpoint of God only knows how long this bean has just been a bean, you know? I mean, they last for a heck of a long time, don't they? In a package. Yeah, it could last for tens, dozens of years, right? Before it kind of goes stale. Probably longer, I would guess. It just doesn't know that it's a bean, right? It just, I mean, in this current state, it thinks it's just not much more than a rock. Yeah, it doesn't have that perception. Now, I bring this up because the idea of this work, even though you are inundated at times with all kinds of esoteric and occult ideas and knowledge, and consider things from this perspective and consider things from that perspective, the fact of the matter is that you already are it. You already are it. What's getting in the way is the perception. Yeah, you think now. So if you want to draw the analogy a little bit further, then maybe my role in all of this would be something akin to a gardener at the moment, right? To making sure that you're getting water and getting nutrients in the soil, right? But you are already it, you see. There's nothing to be added to you, right? This is creating an ecology for you to become, full-fledged beanstalks, right? But nothing needs to be added to you whatsoever. In fact, I would say probably quite the opposite is the case, in that uh, what needs to be extracted would be the husk, yeah, that hard outer shell. And we have a word for that, but I think it's often misused. I'm going to use it in more of an esoteric or an occult meaning. And that word is ego. We've talked about ego. It's shown up in the past, hasn't it? You know, I don't think people understand what it is and where it comes from. We had one interpretation of it a few weeks ago, having to do with movement towards God. And then, if you recall, I drew an egg, yeah, up on the chalkboard, and it was the idea of kind of this aspect of eating something, all right, this sort of diminishment of something. One perception that I want to share today is really along the lines of um, you kind of sacrifice that aspect of yourself at some point in time in the journey. You sacrifice the ego as the paschal lamb of your higher self, of your higher being, the higher aspects of yourself. Yeah? The more the more nothing you can become in the time in the short term, the more everything you're able to become later. You see, if a seed, if a bean hangs onto that hard outer husk, hangs onto it, and identifies with it. Nope, this is the form I've been my whole life. This is how I shall remain. It can't grow. It can't become what it should be. Yeah. This is one of the biggest lessons I've learned in my life is that to become more, you have to become less. You can't continue to accumulate. You can't continue to gather into oneself until you begin to let go of those things. And the way that it works, um, some of you have been exposed to the idea of the Eminent, which is really just an extension of oneself. Okay, now take this physical life, for example, right? I'm in communication with something that could be called the higher aspect of myself. And that is in communication with something a bit higher up the gem rod or up the ray of creation, which is in communication with something higher than that, and so on and so forth. And so you see that the idea of evolution, of a spiritual journey, is really figuring out who your friends are, right? Being able to have a connection to these types of things. It's always been a bit of a puzzle for me how, well, let me retract that because, I wasn't born fully developed. It's not possible, right? So for a while now, it's been a puzzle for me. The idea that if a person can believe that there is some higher power in the universe, some ultimate intelligence, some ultimate being, whether you want to call it God, the absolute, whatever term you want to apply to it, how it is that you can see yourself as separate from it. Yeah. If there was something original that you are sort of the end result of, hello, kitty, on the bed, getting comfortable. See the kitty? That's great. If you, if there was this hole, or is this hole, sorry, the camera's going to flip out on me. If there is this hole, WHOLE, how is it that you can't figure out that you're a part of that? Right? That you are that. You're just an aspect to it. It's like, imagine for a moment that instead of being you, You're a tiny little cell in your finger, yeah, or anywhere else in your body. And your perception is that I am me, right? Me, I am the cell. And all of everything else in creation is separate from me, separate to that cell, right? When the fact is that it's part of the whole, it's part of everything. The cell is you, just like you are part of the universe. It's all part of it. Do you understand? You see how when you really break it down, if you believe that there is this ultimate aspect of creation, how can you see yourself as separate from it? Yeah, I had to acknowledge the kitty there for a moment because it's part of you, whether you realize it or not. That cat, getting on the bed and wanting to nest and that sort of thing, that's part of you. And the fact of the matter is that it's part of you because you had the experience of it just now. Yeah. Had I not pointed it out and had you not seen it in the camera behind Molly, it may not have been a part of you because it hadn't entered your reality. And now, if you look around yourself and look around at these folks that have joined you here and think about your life and think about your job and your family, your extended education, your just everything that encompasses the entirety of your life, that's all you. It's all part of you. What you don't see is the divinity in that, and that's unfortunate to me. Yeah. I had a very, have you ever experienced a kind of sadness that is not depression? It's not a sadness of, like, oh, I'm hurting for such and such, or, I'm depressed or morbid or whatever, but a kind of sadness of just this longingness of what could be that's almost there. Yeah, that's what I experienced this morning. It was actually a bit religious. I get religious from time to time. Not religious in the sense of I feel like going to church, but religious from the standpoint of where religion issues from in creation. Of this open longingness for you, yeah, for you to be what you are. You don't need any of this. Do you understand? I'm not going to take it away from you, but you don't need any of this. If you could just shift your perception for one moment and realize what exactly you really are, and that you are me, and you are gods, and you are goddesses, and you are planets, and you are, we've talked about this before in the ray of creation. You have a representation all the way up. There's a bit of you. Yeah. It's almost like, when you write something with a pencil, how a bit of that lead comes off at the, or not lead, but a bit of that graphite comes off at the end. Yeah. And that's what's written down. That's the state of your being right now. You think you're the writing, when the fact is that you were and are still a part of that pencil. You're not separate. So, I said I'd come soft. This probably isn't soft, is it? Hard at times for an Aries to be soft, isn't it? But yeah, this is my humble plea to you, is to let go of the things that you don't need. Please let go of what you don't need and focus on what you can be and what you already are. I thought to myself this morning, before kind of coming down here and getting the atmosphere and environment set up, that maybe it would be best if I approach every meeting that I have with you as though it were the last, right? So that one of these days, when it is the last, yeah, because time comes for all of us, doesn't it? That you can say to yourselves, that last meeting was absolutely the most important meeting of my life. Yeah. So that you can walk away from every single meeting, if possible, and say, if I never have another meeting again, this is the one I'll remember. This is the one I needed. Otherwise, I'm not really doing my job well, am I, as a gardener? Yeah, forget to water you and just sprinkle a bunch of nitrous down without remembering to let it soak in. All right. I'll be soft for a minute. Where are you all with this? How does this sentiment sit with you? I'll stop pitching. All right. Pitching, P-I-T-C-H. Not to be mistaken for another term. I'll stop pitching for a minute. Where does this sit with you? How does this sit?
Well, that was a bit heavy.
In what way?
I know it just felt heavy. That bit.
Hopefully not in a depressing way, though.
No,
Was
no,
it?
not in a
Yeah.
depressing way. Just heavy.
You go further than that?
No.
Okay.
Strange
Yeah.
one.
Sam, I'll help with that a bit. I understand the heaviness because that's how what you're feeling right now is what I've been feeling this morning with the idea. So I use the term religion. Religion is being hit by a bus. Did you know that? Religion is walking across the street and being hit by a bus. What I mean by that is that it impacts your life. Yeah? If it doesn't impact your life, if it's theoretical, it's not religious. If it actually sits with you and holds on to you for a time and alters what you are, or that's a bad way to put it, isn't it? Makes known what you are, then it's religious. Yeah. So heavy can be a religious thing at times, you see, but I'm using it differently than most people use the term religion in the world. It's a very loaded term, isn't it? But yeah, I understand the heaviness. I do. Yeah. I genuinely love you all. I do. I want this for you. Yeah. It's not easy. It's not easy from this side of things either. I know it's not easy for you because I put you on the spot and I drag you around and make you think in ways that you haven't thought of before sometimes. You know, truth be told, I'm just like you. I'm just out here doing my best, just like you are. So we're all in this together, ladies and gentlemen. Yeah. Do you know you don't need anything else? It really is just a single revelation. If you could literally just have a different perception about yourself, then you wouldn't need any of this. It's like I said, it's fertilizer. Yeah. It's tilling, it's watering, all of those things. You can till and water the ground all you want to, but if there's not a seed in there, nothing's going to grow. Isn't that right?
Mm.
That's the important bit, is the you of it. I think I've said before, which probably isn't accurate, that if y'all weren't here, I would still be doing this, because I wouldn't actually, right? It would be, I'd be tilling and watering my own soil, but if there's no seeds out there, then what are you going to do? All right. Pitching. I'll stop pitching, please. Tell me how this sits with you. Or it can just sit with you if you want. There's no pressure.
Yeah, it does feel very serious, not in a heavy way. That's very strong, very quickly today. Yeah. And one of the things that I spotted was by having the microphone off, it causes a lack of spontaneity. There's a little bit of a consciousness that needs to be applied to make the step to turn the mic off. And yeah, I totally agree that if there's background noise, mics do need to be off. It's hard to form it up into words what I'm feeling.
Yeah.
It is very, very strong. It feels
Mark,
real.
think of
Yeah.
it from this standpoint. Let me help with something.
Yeah,
all
yeah.
right?
Please.
Because I said earlier, looking around, right, the kitty and
Yeah.
me, right, and your life and all of this. If it's really all a part of you, then ask yourselves a puzzling question for a moment. Why did you hear it just now? Ah, see, it's starting. Now you're starting to get it. You know, listen, I'm not saying I'm a figment of your imagination, but I'll tell you what you hear from what I say is. Because each of you might be hearing something slightly different for your own life. So that is you, okay? Whatever's sitting in you with regards to what was just said is exactly what you need at this point in time. And I know if you turn to Clarity or Sam or Molly or Jeff or anyone else in here, they're going to have a slightly different take on what was just said. Yeah. Expand yourselves, ladies and gentlemen, please. You are a universe. You just don't realize it, right? You're a universe in seed form. I love the analogy of a seed because every seed contains an absolute forest, doesn't it? I mean, imagine the potential of just one seed, what it is. Yeah, because it grows into a plant, which drops a bunch more seeds, and so on and so forth. And yet each of you are that. Yeah.
I think we don't know the way of manifestation of our potential.
Okay. Yeah. So crack through the husk. Step 1. Step 2, you're it. That's really it, honestly. I said I would talk about this, the idea of where ego actually comes from. So we've talked about these kind of 4 zones before, right? We've got the physical, you've got the astral, the mental, and the divine. Okay? These 4 realms. Physical world, this, the body, everything you touch, feel, sense, okay? Astral, mostly to do with emotions. The cloaking of force. Yeah, the emotional cloak of force. This here in the mental is where something like ego lives. It's not down here. People think that it's something down here. It's actually up here. That's the part that needs to be shed in favor of reality. Because, see, we go through our lives as seeds. We all go through our lives, and we look left and we see a bit of the seed over there, and we look right and we see a bit of the seed over there. Odd. I just did that backwards. It doesn't matter. And we create this kind of reality around ourselves and say, this is my life. You know, this is what it's about. This is what's in it. But inside, and that could be the ego, you see. Inside, though, there's the germ of what's actually real. And I said before that the difference is kind of more about what you're in contact with, what you're able to communicate with. Do you understand what I mean by communicate with? Because you get up here, and this is all thoughts. This is everything you think about yourself, but it's encapsulated. It forgets about the germ of life, which is really what the seed is, isn't it? An inert seed. Yeah, we do this to our food for God knows what reason. Yeah, we render our seeds inert. I don't know why. Probably so, someone can't go plant popcorn in their backyard or whatever. But yeah, we do this. I don't know why we do this. It's absolute insanity. The real value, though, is letting that go, letting all that stuff go. Yeah, the Buddhists are famous for it, aren't they? What are you? Yeah, they call them koans. What are you? And you think to yourself, oh, I'm a body, and you meditate for a while, and nope, that's not it. Go deeper. What are you? See, it's a shedding. It's a shedding. They've got it right in that regard. Where the Western mind tends to get it wrong with respect to things like Buddhism and other Eastern derivations of way is the Western mind tends to become a bit morbid when it's told to let go of attachments. Start to lack joy in life. It's not what it's about. What it's about is removing the crust that isn't reality and coming to the core of something. Yeah. Did you know that, though? Did you know this is where ego sits? It's a high function. It's not down here. People think, ego, ooh, evil, get rid of your ego and be free without even realizing where it comes from. Yeah.
Piers,
Yeah.
what that causes me to think is, if that's where the ego is,
Yeah.
then what is its true purpose?
What is its what?
What is its true higher purpose?
Fuel. That's all. Yeah, thank you. I thought that was obvious. It's fuel. What you just asked me is, considering that there is a germ of life inside of every seed, what is the purpose of the whatever they call that substance that surrounds it? It's fuel for growth. Now, you can take someone who's what we would culturally describe as simple. Yeah, someone who grew up in some rural place, doesn't have exposure to proper language, and may not be able to read. And you understand what I mean, right? I'm not being degrading to anyone. And yet they're often the most spiritual people you will ever find. Yeah. You take some Western educated Ivy League school person, eloquent, has great manners, all this type of stuff, and place them up on a mountain, and they just won't get it. They won't be able to see the reality of the situation, right? Because they have too much fuel surrounding. There's just the right balance that needs to be had. Now, I'm not saying don't be educated, because here's the other idea, is that someone who does go out into the world and collects the things, especially in childhood, collects all sorts of experiences and all sorts of bits and pieces from around them, and uses that at some point in their spiritual development journey as a fuel, they'll be able to go farther. Yeah. If they can get there, that's the thing. So the higher purpose of the ego is fuel. It gets burned off in the process. AKA personality. Aside from being able to perceive things slightly differently, or from a different octave, the other thing is freedom. That's another difference. How free are you really in yourselves? Yeah. Can you do actually what needs to be done without shame? Do you know what I mean? It's a tough one. It's a tough one. The reason I say it, we've talked about this before in the past with respect to emotional outbursts and the difference between an actual slip in one's self-cognizance as an emotional outburst, someone who flies off the handle, right? And one that is needed at the time. If we were in an environment where we could all meet together, we would do a very powerful exercise of learning how to blow up at each other in a controlled way. Are you free to be able, I'm not suggesting we do this now, okay? I'm not suggesting like we just start ripping each other apart. But do you have it in yourself to be able to do that if it's what's called for at the moment? You see, most people don't, because we've got these social norms that are inhibitions, is what they really are. You know, the ability to break through one's inhibitions is hugely difficult to get to the point of. And yet, if you can, if you do, it gives you the kind of freedom to be able to become your bean, become your stock, yeah, become your beanstalk. Anyway, it is not to bring in much atrium work, but it is star sapphire. You understand that when you are a baby in the womb, that you eventually grow to the point where you break free of that. And then in childhood, that's another womb, right, of socialization. And you break through that into adulthood. And if you continue your journey, you break through adulthood into lack of inhibition, into freedom. And then you're in a bigger womb, you see. Then you're really in a planetary womb. And if you continue your journey, you break outside of the planetary womb into another one, and so on and so forth. It's layers. It's just layers upon layers. Very important to see where you're at and break through it at any point in time. Imagine if we socialized not infants. Imagine if we, if the culture could get to the fetus, what would it say? Stay put, young fetus, right? Don't be born. Don't be born. Stay exactly as you are. Yeah, thank God we don't do that. But we do it in the cultural world, right? They even stopped handing out ribbons to kids, athletes, You go through, run a race and, long jump and the high jump and all sorts of things that you do in school. Everyone gets a participation ribbon. Because we're so afraid that we're going to think that someone's going to feel bad because they excel differently. See, this is the thing. We've lost the idea of, okay, I was an outstanding jumper. I really was. Amazing. My first car was a Volkswagen Bug. Familiar with the Volkswagen Bug? Little bully looking thing, 1966. And I could literally stand in front of the thing, right, on the pavement, and boing, leap up and jump right on top of it. Believe it, it's true. Can't do it now, but I could at the point in time. Now, see, that's I say that not because it really is outstanding, right? That some 12, 15, well, not 15, 16-year-old can do that. Yeah. But it came natural. I've always been that way. I could always jump. Long too. Yeah. Running start as far as I could. I could jump quite a long ways. Now, should a boy like that just get a participation ribbon? No. Because it's not, I don't own it, you see. I didn't study for it. I didn't train for it. I didn't, go to jumping school and every day for 7 hours after school, just practice jumping. I didn't do any of that. It just kind of came naturally, right? What I couldn't do was run a long race. I'm a short, right? Give me a short distance and I'll beat you there. But a long race, not really. And that's okay. That's how I'm wired. That's how this life showed up, to be able to do things like this and not do things like that. Now, does that make me lesser because I can't do that and greater because I can do this? No. Yeah. But our culture, where I'm going with this is our culture says, nope, it's a level playing field, right? And we start this kind of indoctrination early on. It's a level playing field. Nobody is excellent. Nobody is, the opposite of whatever excellence is in everything. Everything is the same. Everyone is the same, right? We have distorted the concept of equality. I'm giving a physical example because it applies to everything in our culture. Everyone's equal, but we are different. Yeah. We are different. And it's okay to look at the things that you excel at and go, wow, whew, that's cool, right? I can do that. Wow, that's amazing. And it's also okay to feel no shame for not being able to run the long race. You see, because that's how this God called you showed up here. It's what you can do. Yeah, you were meant to. Now, this is what comes into inhibitions later on in life. People become afraid to express what they think about the world, what they think about certain situations. Yeah, they become culturalized. And honestly, there's a safety aspect to it as well. Yeah, you can't, unless you own the company, you can't go in every day and just, say what you want. But where do you find your freedom then? That really begs the question. If you're not free in the culture, how can you be free?
So, can I speak up?
Yeah, please.
Okay. So that freedom to say and, just to not have those inhibitions, more and more, I find myself in that freedom. And, to some people's dismay. That said, when I'm in those times where there is something I want to say, I recognize the freedom to choose not to, because I also recognize the other's freedom, and it's an engagement that I would prefer not to be in.
Yes. So what you're saying, Jeffrey, is you find your freedom in the freedom of response, not in the cage of compliance.
Yes.
Yeah, that's right. That's how you do it. You got to be a bit sneaky and tricky in our culture. Yeah. Now, what's meant by freedom of response? Well, it's knowing what's called for in any particular situation. Yeah. I've had the uncomfortable honor, if you'll call it that, of speaking in front of 6 or 7 5-star or 4-star generals. Yeah, imagine, right? Yeah, culture would say, "Be intimidated." Yeah, be intimidated, right? That's what the culture would say, wouldn't it? Being able to be free in oneself and still express oneself while being responsive to the situation. Yeah, that's what freedom is. In this, it doesn't mean do whatever the hell you want to. Yeah, go ahead, Jeffrey.
What I see in that is that you can choose to respect the situation, right? Those are other slivers of life and consciousness, slivers of the whole, reflection of self as well.
Yeah.
And you choose. You also recognize that you've engaged in a system of rank, right? So those are generals, and they've achieved whatever it is, of that game that you play in the military.
Generaling, yeah.
Generally, right? Generally generals. So the thing is, you can respect the process that you communally have gone through, right? You've each signed up for that game, that engagement, and there's still a slice of human, no greater, no less than yourself.
Yeah.
So you respect the circumstance, you respect the humanity, and then you make your choices.
And yet, you're absolutely correct. But there is an and yet. You know what the and yet is?
Well, okay, and I don't mean this cynically, and yet none of it matters.
Well, actually, you're right. If. So now we went from an and yet to an if. None of it matters if you've begun to sprout, right? If it matters
What?
here, right? If it's just one seed and another, if this seed is higher up in the soil than the other one, it's going to sprout first and whatever, right? It's just the pecking order of things, isn't it? But if you have these connections, which is what this work is all about, then you can actually honestly elevate instead of doing so out of fear. Yeah. If you have these higher connections in your life, you can put on whatever show you need to in the seed form. You really, and you don't even, it doesn't bother you. That's the thing. Yeah. Well said. Well said, sir. So what I wanted to do today is to give a more open sense of this work. All right. It's not about this lesson and that lesson and learning this and learning that. What that can do is that it can help to add the right kinds of fuel to the seed, to the ego even. Yeah. But it's not really the end result. It's a means to an end, if that makes sense. Yeah. Because you could really do away with all of it, to be honest. Just get rid of all the teachings whatsoever and just have a perception change. Would it be that easy? That's the problem. That's the hard part, isn't it? It's not that easy to just go, I choose no longer to have these perceptions. I'm going to have these ones instead. But in essence, that really is what it's about. By the way, probably a good 95% of it isn't really objectively true anyway. Did you know that? You know, for those of you who squirrel away all the archives and all that type of stuff, probably 95% of them are not true anyway. What it is it's one person saying, here's how I think. How does that sit with you? Right? Because it's a different perception. It's a different kind of fuel that you may not have had before, but that's all it is. But when you get up to these realms, it's not true. None of it. You know, there really is only one thing, and it's called divinity. All the rest of it is manifestations of various things. So if you find astrology useful, by all means, be an astrologer. Figure it out, play with it, you know, run with numbers. I'll tell you what, it keeps you open anyway to other things. Yeah. But it's not really true, especially not these days. Everything's shifted and moved around. If you find numerology, if you find sigils, if you find it, whatever you find useful, all I'm doing is saying, hey, look at this pattern of thinking. Do you find this useful? Yeah. And if you do, great, run with it. If not, okay too. This is why we're not a doctrinal thing. You know? Mark, what's the expression? The Eminent scriptures. Right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. I didn't mean to bust anyone's bubble, as they say, but really, this is what's true. The fact that you are it. This is just like the rest is just garbage that you have cluttered around yourselves and sometimes forget. But we do need these little tricks, don't we? I know, Sachin, you don't like the word tricks in this context, but it kind of is.
Yeah.
All right. How are we?
I don't have any problem with the word tricks. That's fine.
Okay.
Whatever is the need of the hour.
Whatever
is the need of the hour. Do
Yeah.
whatever it takes.
Yeah. And that's really what it is. Do what it takes. That's probably, you know, Sachin just summed up the whole lesson for today. Do what it takes. But just please don't forget that you're not just seeds, and you're certainly not stones. I love these things. I'm going to plant one for each of you today. Stick them in a pot and watch them grow. Just as a call over to myself. Yeah, I'll plant one for me too. Pleiades. Just as a call over. That, it's not a pebble. And in the end, if it's treated correctly, it's not even a seed. It's just its kind of funky little appearance, just like all of us. Well, so much for soft. I'm sorry, ladies and gentlemen. Softlier. Yeah, maybe softlier than yesterday. Are we good? Here's another way to sum this up. I know, Jeff, you had something to say, and I'll let you in a moment.
Okay.
But really, we talked about these like layers and layers of wombs. Right? You can look at them as the Mashtorkia dolls, right? The little nesting dolls, Russian nesting dolls. You can look at them like that. Yeah, you kind of pop out of one, except in the reverse order, right? You pop out of one, you're in another one, you pop out another, and another. But in your adult life, to pop out of that womb of quote unquote adulthood into more of a spiritual life is really just popping out of the world of nonsense. Looking in yourself and finding what's nonsense and just letting it go. That's adult 2.0. Oops. Coming out of the world. If you can really adhere to that and feel that, it's that feels like liberation. It does. Because you don't have to argue. You don't have to be petty. You don't have to be jealous. You don't have to be, none of that stuff. It just doesn't matter. It's all nonsense. Yeah. Wouldn't you say that's kind of the crux of the matter as far as busting out of that that nesting doll into the creational nesting doll? Jeffrey, what did you have to say?
Yeah, that's the territory, and I just wanted to make sure we didn't. You touched on it earlier, and as you're talking, I'm realizing how important it is. It's not what you need to add, right? It's what you need to remove. We've all been socialized in all kinds of ways, and then I think the reference for last week, really it's the in the second half of life, right? The personality, eating of the personality to grow the essence, right? To grow, or what I guess in this context, adult 2.0, right? I think that I just find as you're talking like that, that's it, is what doesn't fit, what is of that training, and then the rest falls into place.
Yeah. There's something so beautiful and liberating about shedding. And it goes completely contrary to what our culture says that we're supposed to do as adults. We're supposed to add to ourselves. That's what they say. Continue to add to yourself. Go back to school, get another degree. All of it, right? It's all gimme, 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 gimme. And it clouds what it means to actually be a human. Gimme, gimme, gimme should be the mantra for childhood. Yeah, you should be into everything as a child. Always. Everything, every little thing you can, including sticking candles in microwaves if you were here yesterday. Yeah. Right? You should be into everything as a child. As an adult, you should be able to take all of that and go, wow, that was really interesting. Now I know something about plasma. You see? Didn't think that would come in handy, but however many decades later, it did. And you can begin to use those things, but in the process of shedding them. Yeah. Certainly don't need to go do that today, do I? Got the lesson. Cause some problems at home. Right. Okay, good. Yeah, you got the point. Yeah, let go. Let go of what's not important. Let go of what's not essential. I think that's really it. Okay, are we happy to leave it here? This was my religious ramble for the morning. And you're right, Sam. It was heavy. It's more joy now because I've got it out and I've dumped it all on you. So we can now go take it out on each other. All right. Very good.